Hello and welcome to SDN Tech Forum. In this video, we are going to do something interesting. This is AWS Crash Course bonus content. So far I have shown you how to spin up a resource in cloud, how to manage resources in cloud, how to interact between the cloud resources. Now we are going to do something interesting. You have seen me that we do a lot of IoT things, and most of the time we rely on, say, IoT protocols till, say, Mosquito or um, MQTT CoAP, right? Now what I'm going to do, I have a fleet of Raspberry Pi, couple of Raspberry Pi sitting on my desk. I want to manage them from cloud, and we are going to do that. That means we'll do a hybrid environment uh, management, node management, and you can call it fleet management in AWS terminology. So this picture worth 1,000 words. Here, as you can see, we are logged into Management Console. From Management Console, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a IAM role for my hybrid environment. Hybrid environment because some of the resources are in cloud, some are in on-prem, like Raspberry Pis are on-prem. So we'll create a role, suitable role for that. Then we'll create a manage instance and activation for hybrid environment. So we will create an activation code. Fine. After that, we are going to install the agent, SSM agent, and I have done a video where we talk about SSM agent. So SSM will install the SSM agent on on-prem devices, in this case Raspberry Pi, and from there onwards we'll go to AWS System Manager. AWS System Manager has the right permissions to talk to this hybrid environment via this role, and from AWS Manager, System Manager, we can run all kind of commands, Ansible playbook, etc. remotely, from cloud directly to the on-prem devices. So I'll show you how to build this thing. This is, as shown here, 4-step process. So let's get into a demo. Okay, here we are. We are going to build the hybrid on management. So for the first, what we want to do, we want to create a role. All right, so let's go and find IAM services, identity and access management. Within IAM dashboard, you can see there are some default roles. There are additional roles we created during the AWS journey. Let's go ahead and create a new role. Trusted entity type, select AWS services because it allows AWS services like EC2 and others to perform action in this account. Then we have the use case. There are certain common use cases, like frequently use cases like EC2, allow EC2 instances to call some on your behalf, or Lambda. But in our case, we are going to use AWS System Manager. So let me find System Manager here because we want to create a role for our System Manager so that System Manager can call services on our behalf. So you can type system, and then there are two suggestions shows up. One is System Manager, another is System Manager Inventory. In this case, we are going to uh, just select System Managers only. Now let's attach the permission. We are going to at least you should have one permission, but we will add one more CloudWatch permission, so that in future if you want to do some monitoring, remote monitoring, we can use that. So let's first add Amazon SSM Manage Instance Core, that service. All right. So you can search that and it will show up and it is added. Now you don't have to, once it is added, if you search another service, don't think that the previous policy is gone. It's there. So let's go ahead and add one more permission policy related to CloudWatch. So CloudWatch agent server policy, right? As you can see, I have two, but in policy, nothing shows up. So don't get confused with that. You have both the policies attached as you search that. This part is a little bit confusing, right? Why I can see both the policies. So UIs, sometime it can confuse you, but once you do it a couple of times, you'll be good. That is why it is always best to use some kind of orchestration flow. But we are doing bare minimum, so UI is good. As you can see, add permission. Both the permissions are showing up here. CloudWatch agent server policy and Amazon SSM manage instance code. So this role which we are trying to create is for trusted entity system manager. It has two permissions. Now let's go ahead and name it. Name this role something, because this is user created role. So I'm going to name it, say, something related to SSM instance, and let's make it a little bit generic so that we understand. Okay, SSM instance, Raspberry Pi, or just say Pi fleet, because we may use this role for multiple Pis, right? Multiple Raspberry Pis. Now you can see the trusted entity relationship here and the policies. So at this point, we are ready to create the role. Role has been created. SSM instance Pi flat, the role is created. All right, so we can search. If you want to verify where is your role, you can see last access or last created, or otherwise you can simply type the role name just to make sure that you have the role available. There are some predefined role, but which you can reuse. But uh, we will, for this video, we will create a role attach permission so that we get some practice as well. All right, so step one is completed. We have IAM role. Now let's go back. Here we don't want to do anything with EC2, mind it. We want to manage our Raspberry Pis which are sitting on-prem, not in cloud. So search for System Manager. This is the first time login. Once you first time login, you can see on the left hand you have all the menus. Within there it shows you how it works, and within that select hybrid activation, because we want to activate or generate an activation code for our on-prem devices. So let's create an activation. And how it works, as you can see, verify prerequisite, create an IAM role. That's what we did. Create a manage instant activation. That's what we are going to do. And then install SSM agent. Finally, manage your hybrid environment, uh, and devices and EC2 instance. All right, so create an activation. Here you have a couple of, it's a form is presented, and as you can see, there is a activation description which is optional, but the thing to note is instance limit. Specify the total number of service and VM that you want to register. Maximum, by default you have a maximum of 1000 instance limit, but you can always, just like this is not a hard limit, you can always give Amazon a call and get it increased for your account. These are like service quota. So let me see. I want to create an activation code which can be used in two or on two instances, because if you have say 100 devices, you don't want to create 100 activation code, you want to reuse them, and that's what you can do when you say instance limit. But make sure uh, these are not uh, leaked, or otherwise they can be abused. If someone else get your activation code and activation ID, they can add, if you have large number of instance limit. I don't know why they would like to do it, but that is possible. So make sure that you generate the as many number as possible as you need. And then the select an existing custom IAM role. That's what we created, SSM instance Pi fleet. That's the role IAM role we created for system manager. You can also set activation expiry date. Um, that means you want to make sure that the code, if you are going to handle it to your operation team, they use that activation code within certain time frame. Hence you can use expiry date, but we will not use it. And so this is my activation. On the top, as you can see, a activation code and activation ID is generated, and please copy paste this because they won't be available again. It's just like your secret key. All right. So activation ID is available, but you may have noticed in previous screen, we need two things: activation code as well as activation ID. Now I am on step 3, which is my Raspberry Pi. So on my Raspberry Pi, what I want to do, I want to install SSM agent. And for that, what we will do, we'll use some Linux command. The first is obviously I want to create a folder at my temp location called SSM, and then I will do a curl wget and get the SSM agent downloaded to my local Raspberry Pi, right? That's the software what we want. So we can fetch that using wget or curl command. These commands are supplied on AWS documentation, and I'll show you that. I'll also paste a link to that documentation in the description. You can use that. So not just only Raspberry Pi, you can also install SSM agent on your Windows machine, on your Mac machine, on your Linux machine. And Raspberry Pi, essentially here, as you can see, it's a Linux machine, right? So download the required packages. I want to download Linux package because that's the operating system we have. As you hit enter, it's getting downloaded. Okay, 25 MB. Not bad. It's pretty decent size, lightweight. Now go to your folder where you actually downloaded the software. As you can see, the agent is available as Debian package. And I'm doing a DPKG to uncompress that and install it at the same time. So now, as you can see, agent is started and it has created a soft link for that service. So let's stop the SSM agent as of now because we want to uh, do the activation and other things before we start managing this Pi remotely from AWS System Manager. So I'm going a little slow here in case you want to follow. You don't have to start stop. You can follow at your pace here. So mind it, so far we have just installed the SSM agent, but this agent is not activated yet. For that, what we will need the activation code and activation ID. And I hope at this point of time you have copied the activation code and activation ID. Do not just take a screenshot because activation code and ID, they are alphanumeric large strings, and typing them can be a pain, right? Just as in my case, I had the activation ID which I can copy, but I accidentally forgot to uh, copy and paste activation code, though I have a screenshot, but you may see typing that is a pain. So this is the document I was talking about: Raspberry Pi OS, formerly Raspberry Pi, how to install and activate a SSM agent. So this is the command we are going to use: activation ID, activation code, and then you have to mention the region, in which region you want to activate this. So as you can see, when I first did that, this there is a error message, and I figured that this error message after a couple of retries is because the documentation tell you that the code and IDs are in between codes. Don't use the codes. That's the problem. Documentation is not very clear, and you can see in next attempt when I did a code with just the string, no quotations, and ID, just the string, no quotations, and region is of course US East 1, my registration was successful. That means this Raspberry Pi can reach out to AWS Cloud in US East region and say, here is my activation code, here is my activation ID, and AWS says, yes, you're good. I recognize you because you came within expiry time frame. So it is connection has been made, and now we can start the SSM agent service. What happens when you have the SSM agent running, right? You get a agent deploy on your fleet so that you can do multiple things. You can do monitoring, you can do configuration, and so on. So at this point of time, role was created, SSM agent was created, installed, and we have it registered, right? So now to check where my fleet is, you can go to AWS System Manager and State Manager. There you can see the status. It actually recognize that when it was, but the status is still pending, right? So within some time, this will become available. Let's go to Manage Instance within System Manager, or you can search Manage Instance, and here you go. You can see this is my node ID, and now what we are seeing here is we have the IP address, the local IP address what I had in on-prem, and all the users. So SSM agent started sending me a lot of information by default. That means what what is my IP address, what processes I'm running, what are the different matrices, right? All those things, inventory information, everything started showing here. So patch, today we don't have any patch. Then the configuration compliance, this is configuration compliant because we have the right association, etc. So as you can see, as soon as the agent was activated, we are started to get all the good information about my fleet. You can also use you install a key for better security of your fleet management, so that no one can just use the activation code and ID and connect to your AWS and join your fleet. For that, you can also use a key, but this is just a demo video, so we are not going into that kind of strict security. I'm going to do the next in my time because that's a good practice. And as you can see, all the details about my node, which I recently um, installed, is there. So we can see processes, we can see user and groups, and all those things. So basically, we started getting data from our uh, hybrid environment or on-prem node. So you can see all the users here. That's pretty awesome, right? But that's really powerful. Now, the next cool thing what we would like to do is, obviously having the connection only is not enough. You want to make sure that you can do remote configuration, remote compliance, you can apply patches. That's the purpose of this fleet management, right? So let's take one of the use case, running command remotely. That means running command from AWS console. So search for run command, and when you click on run command, there are certain predefined list of commands available already. Think of it like a handy script. Someone or AWS created a nice useful script for you, and they tell you that which operating system they are applicable for. Some are applicable for Linux and Windows both. Some are only applicable for Linux, and so on. And uh, it is like pre-installed. It has variable. You can use your values in those variable, and then you can send it to target selection. That means you can send to instance tag. If you have so many devices, you can tag them and apply the configuration in batch, or you can select your instance uh, specifically that this is what I want. So that's what we will be doing. We'll actually pick up our instance manually and run some commands over there. Then what you can do, you can write the command output uh, to S3, right? Obviously, if you're running some script and there is some, or you're trying to fetch some command, so the output you can write directly to S3 bucket instead of like having it on screen and download it locally. So it has very nice integration with other services. Also, as you can see, you can send the logs to CloudWatch. You can also generate notification, SNS notification, that every time a command runs, you get a notification. Right? So pretty powerful and good deal of like a remote configuration management. You can integrate with a GitHub page as well. And you don't have to be a developer or something. There are tons of scripts, commands already created by AWS and community. As you can see, we have AWS apply Ansible playbook, chef recipe, and the list is actually go on. Let's look at one of the Ansible playbook, the content. Okay, this document is to run Ansible playbook for SSM instance. You can read more about it. Platform supported is Linux, and then there is versioning, etc. Content, this is the complete playbook. If you want to know what is in this playbook, what are the option variable, what are mandatory parameter, or what exactly it is doing, right? You can read through the playbook itself. So as you can see, there is a bash script in which install some packages and this and that and get your instance ready for Ansible. All right. So let's do something simpler, because there are so many things, right? You can do configuration management, you can do remote monitoring, you can run compliance, all those things you can do using that. So let's do something simple. What we are going to do, we are going to pick a script and clone that document, because I want to have my own command, right? So I'm picking one document or or a run command, clone it and change now. So what I'm going to say, list open port. I want to run this command to get me all the list of open ports on my Linux instance or Raspberry Pi instance, right? So you put the name, then in target type, again, you can use one particular, or you can use a tag. Then obviously, since we cloned it, the script, what you can see in JSON format, it comes from the previous command. I don't want this. Let me get rid of this completely. So basically why we are doing this, because there was no create option. We just had a something available. We cloned it and now we are getting rid of the old thing. Here, as you can see, all I want to do is run netstat-a. Let's give me a list of all command. And then what you can do, you can create your own document. You can publish it as well, right? But let's not do that. We are right now happy with the command what we just created, and this is list open port. I'm going to favorite it, and let's go back to system manager, go back to run commands and find this command so that we can run it. All right, we are here at the run command. As you click on run command, all the command documents started showing. Let's find the one we created. List open ports. That's what owner, as you can see, the owner is a number. It's not Amazon, because it was created by a user. It was not created by an owner. And we will choose our instance manually. We want to send the output to S3 bucket, we already have a bucket. Enable CloudWatch log. We want to, if you want, you can send all the logs to a CloudWatch. Um, so let's not do that. All we want to do, select our command, select our instance, and run that command. As you run the command, you can see status is in progress. And once we refresh its success, then you can see there are this the first output is for Windows. So this command was not applicable to Windows. So you can ignore, right? It says Windows open port, ignore that. Go to step 2, Linux open port, because when I created this command, or the command originally I cloned, that was applicable for Windows and Linux both. So that's why we are saying that this runs against Windows and this runs against Linux. Here, as you can see, the complete output is here directly. So we ran the command, we have the output on console. You can copy it, or you can download it, or you can send it to an S3 bucket. Since this command didn't run at all, because the first time when a system manager tried to run that command is check, is it the against the instance, is it a Windows instance or a Linux instance? Since ours was a Linux instance, the Windows one didn't execute it at all, hence you don't see any error. All right, so you can create shell scripts as well, not just one line command. You can have your scripts created and whatnot. It's very powerful. Or you can get your instance ready for Ansible and run Ansible playbook so that you can make changes um, which are consistent, atomic and idempotent, right? All those things you can do. And also you can come back and see if your command is stored in bucket, but for that you need to have bucket permissions set as well. um, that piece was missing, hence it didn't go there. But as you can see, I have the same netstat output available locally, what I can see on AWS System Manager console. So I hope you like this video. This was a kind of very interesting a different use case, rather than having all the cloud resources, how you can use cloud to do monitor something on-prem. And I think this is really powerful. This is kind of like making things uh, consistent. Whether your resources are in cloud or on-prem, you can use the similar best practices or consistent best practices to manage your infra. So thank you very much, and I hope you find this talk interesting. And if you like to build things, you are following me here and build your own things. If you do so, please do let me know in comment section, and I hope to see you in next video. Thank you.